Welcome back. Alright, don't judge me. I was 3 hours deep into a microbiology rabbit hole at 2 a.m. when I stumbled across something that made me question everything I thought I knew about our planet. It wasn't climate change or mass extinction or even alien life. It was a single sentence buried in a research paper that completely rewired my brain. Earth may have been purple for over 1 billion years. Wait, what? I mean, we've all seen those artist renderings of ancient Earth, volcanic hellscapes, meteor impacts, primitive green slime slowly taking over the oceans, but purple? Like Prince-level purple? The kind of deep, otherworldly violet that would make you think you'd accidentally wandered into an alien movie set? Turns out this isn't some fringe theory cooked up by conspiracy theorists or sci-fi writers. This is legitimate science, proposed by Dr. Shiladitya Dasarma at the University of Maryland, and it's based on discoveries that are honestly more mind-bending than most fiction I've read. But here's the thing that really got me hooked. These purple organisms aren't extinct relics from Earth's distant past. They're still here. They're thriving. And they might be quietly influencing our planet in ways we're just beginning to understand. We're so used to associating our planet with green plants, green chlorophyll, green as the color of life itself. But what if I told you that for potentially billions of years, Earth was dominated by purple organisms that painted our sky in colors we can barely imagine? The story starts with a woman named Shiladitya Dasarma, a microbiologist at the University of Maryland, who spent decades studying some of the most extreme life forms on our planet. Back in 2007, she proposed something that sounds like it belongs in a Marvel movie, the Purple Earth hypothesis. And let me tell you, once you understand the science behind it, you'll never look at a sunset the same way again. Here's where it gets wild. We've all been taught that chlorophyll, that green stuff in plants, is the foundation of life on Earth. It captures sunlight and converts it into energy through photosynthesis. But Dasarma discovered that there's another light-harvesting molecule that's actually simpler, more primitive, and possibly way older than chlorophyll. It's called retinal, and it doesn't make things green, it makes them purple. Now, before you start imagining alien landscapes, let me explain what retinal actually is. You've got it in your eyes right now. It's the molecule that helps you see, working inside your retina to convert light into electrical signals your brain can process. But here's the kicker. Certain microorganisms, particularly a group called halobacteria, use retinal not for sight, but for energy. They pump it into their cell membranes and use it to harvest light, just like plants do with chlorophyll. The difference? Chlorophyll absorbs red and blue light, reflecting green back to our eyes. Retinal-based organisms do the opposite. They absorb green light and reflect red and blue, creating that distinctive purple color. And according to Dasarma's research, these purple microbes might have dominated Earth's oceans for over 1 billion years before green photosynthesis ever evolved. Think about what this means for a second. When we imagine early Earth, we picture a hostile, barren landscape slowly being transformed by the first primitive life forms. But what if those early oceans were absolutely teeming with purple microorganisms, so abundant that they literally changed the color of our planet's surface? The implications are staggering. Joe Rogan actually touched on this during one of his podcasts, and his reaction was pretty much what you'd expect. Wait, what? The whole planet was purple? That's insane. And honestly, that's the appropriate response. It is insane. It's like finding out your childhood home was actually painted a completely different color than you remember. But here's where the science gets really interesting. These purple organisms weren't just hanging out in the oceans looking pretty, they were fundamentally changing Earth's chemistry. Unlike green plants, which produce oxygen as a waste product, retinal-based photosynthesis doesn't generate oxygen at all. Instead, it creates what scientists call a hydrogen economy, where hydrogen becomes the primary energy currency of life. This means that for potentially billions of years, Earth existed in a completely different atmospheric state. No oxygen to speak of, no ozone layer, no blue skies as we know them. Instead, you'd have had a planet dominated by purple microbes living in a hydrogen-rich atmosphere, under skies that reflected the same purple hues as the life forms below. Dr. Dasarma's research suggests that this purple period might have lasted from about 3.5 billion years ago until around 2.5 billion years ago. That's a full billion years of purple Earth. To put that in perspective, complex life as we know it has only existed for about 500 million years. Purple microbes had a longer run on this planet than everything from dinosaurs to humans combined. The evidence for this theory comes from some fascinating places. First, there's the fact that retinal-based photosynthesis is incredibly simple compared to chlorophyll-based photosynthesis. It requires fewer proteins, less complex machinery, and can function in much more extreme conditions. From an evolutionary standpoint, it makes perfect sense that life would have started with the simpler system before developing the more complex one. But here's what really sold me on this theory: modern examples. We can still find these purple organisms today thriving in some of the most extreme environments on Earth. Salt lakes, hot springs, highly acidic pools, places where nothing else can survive. They're like living fossils, showing us what life might have looked like billions of years ago. The Great Salt Lake in Utah, for example, regularly turns purple during certain seasons when these halobacteria bloom. Tourists think it's some kind of pollution, but it's actually a glimpse into Earth's ancient past. These microbes are doing exactly what their ancestors did billions of years ago, just on a much smaller scale. And here's where it gets even more mind-blowing. Some scientists think we might find purple life on other planets. If retinal-based photosynthesis really is simpler and more primitive than chlorophyll-based photosynthesis, then any planet with early life might go through a purple phase. NASA's actually looking for this now, scanning distant worlds for the telltale spectral signatures of retinal-based organisms. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to acknowledge something incredible about this discovery. If you're finding this as fascinating as I am, and if you want to stay updated on more mind-bending science stories like this one, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, once you start diving into the weird and wonderful world of astrobiology and evolutionary history, there's no going back. You'll start seeing the world completely differently. But let's dive deeper into what this actually looked like. When I try to picture a purple Earth, I don't just think about the color, I think about the entire ecosystem that would have existed. These weren't just individual microbes floating around, they formed complex communities, massive blooms that could stretch across entire ocean basins. Think about modern algae blooms, but instead of green scums on lakes, imagine vast purple seas stretching to the horizon. The chemistry of this ancient world was completely alien to what we experience today. Without oxygen, there was no rust, no ozone layer, no fire as we know it. The atmosphere would have been rich in methane, hydrogen sulfide, and other gases that would be toxic to us. But for these purple organisms, it was paradise. They thrived in conditions that would kill almost everything alive today. What's particularly fascinating is how these microbes might have influenced weather patterns. Modern research suggests that large concentrations of microorganisms can actually affect cloud formation and precipitation. If purple microbes covered vast areas of the ocean, they might have created their own weather systems, their own climate patterns. The purple Earth wouldn't just have looked different, it would have had completely different seasons, different storms, different rhythms of life. Dr. DeSarma's research team has found evidence that these organisms were incredibly sophisticated. They had complex protein structures for harvesting light, intricate ion pumps for maintaining cellular balance, and even primitive communication systems. Some species could switch between different types of metabolism depending on conditions. When light was abundant, they'd use retinal-based photosynthesis. When it was dark, they'd switch to chemosynthesis, basically eating chemicals instead of light. This adaptability is what allowed them to dominate for so long. While we often think of evolution as a gradual process, these purple microbes were already highly evolved, incredibly successful organisms. They weren't evolutionary stepping stones, they were the main event, the dominant life form on our planet for over 1 billion years. The more I've learned about this, the more it's changed how I think about success and adaptation in my own life. These organisms didn't succeed because they were the most complex or the most aggressive. They succeeded because they were flexible, efficient, and perfectly adapted to their environment. When conditions changed, some adapted to new niches, while others stuck with what worked in extreme environments. There's something profound about realizing that the most successful life forms in Earth's history were purple microbes that most people have never heard of. It makes you question what we mean by success and dominance. These organisms shaped our planet's chemistry, influenced its climate, and laid the groundwork for everything that came after. They're still here, still thriving, still doing what they've done for billions of years. The transition from purple to green wasn't just about color, it was about power. Chlorophyll-based photosynthesis is more efficient at capturing solar energy, which gave green organisms a competitive advantage, but it came at a cost. The oxygen produced by green photosynthesis was toxic to most existing life forms. It was like a biochemical arms race where the winners literally poisoned the atmosphere for the losers. This event, the Great Oxidation Event, was probably the most dramatic mass extinction in Earth's history. It makes the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs look like a minor inconvenience. Entire ecosystems of purple life were wiped out, relegated to the margins of a world that had become hostile to their way of life. But here's what's remarkable. They survived. In salt lakes, in hot springs, in the deep ocean, in places where conditions still resemble the ancient Earth they once dominated. They're living time capsules, organisms that have remained essentially unchanged for billions of years. When you see a salt lake turn purple, you're witnessing something that connects directly to the earliest chapters of life on Earth. Now, let's talk about what actually happened to all that purple life. Why did Earth transition from purple to green? The answer lies in one of the most dramatic events in our planet's history, the Great Oxidation Event, sometimes called the oxygen catastrophe. And yeah, it was as dramatic as it sounds. Around 2.4 billion years ago, cyanobacteria, the first organisms capable of oxygen-producing photosynthesis, began to dominate the oceans. These weren't purple organisms, they were blue-green, and they had developed the more complex but more efficient chlorophyll-based photosynthesis we see in plants today. The problem? For most existing life forms, oxygen was toxic. Imagine being one of those purple microbes, perfectly adapted to life in a hydrogen-rich, oxygen-free environment, when suddenly the entire atmospheric composition of your planet starts changing. It would be like us trying to breathe in a chlorine gas cloud. Most of the purple life forms died out, relegated to the extreme environments where they still exist today. But here's what's fascinating. The transition wasn't immediate. Geological evidence suggests that there was a period of maybe 100 million years where purple and green photosynthesis coexisted. Picture that, a planet where purple oceans slowly gave way to green ones, where the sky itself was changing colors as the atmospheric composition shifted. Some researchers like Carl Woese from the University of Illinois have suggested that this transition period might have been crucial for the development of more complex life forms. The chemical diversity created by having both types of photosynthesis operating simultaneously could have provided the raw materials for evolutionary innovation. And speaking of innovation, here's something that'll blow your mind. Some scientists think chlorophyll itself might have evolved from retinal-based systems. The molecular structures aren't identical, but they're similar enough that one could have been the ancestor of the other. If that's true, then green life as we know it is actually the descendant of purple life. We're all children of the purple Earth. This theory also explains some weird quirks about modern life that never made sense before. Ever wonder why plants are green instead of black? If chlorophyll evolved to coexist with retinal-based organisms, it makes sense that it would avoid the wavelengths those organisms were already using, the green wavelengths. So plants ended up reflecting green light instead of absorbing it, making them appear green to our eyes. The implications for astrobiology are enormous. If we're looking for life on other planets, we shouldn't just be looking for green. We should be looking for purple too. In fact, given that retinal-based photosynthesis is simpler and more robust, alien life might be more likely to be purple than green. Mars, for instance, might have had purple life during its warmer, wetter period billions of years ago. The red planet we see today might once have been purple, covered in vast oceans of retinal-based microorganisms. Some scientists are even proposing that we look for fossilized retinal in Martian rocks. It's more stable than chlorophyll and might preserve better over geological time. But let's bring this back to Earth for a moment. The Purple Earth hypothesis isn't just about ancient history. It's changing how we think about life's fundamental processes. For decades, we've assumed that photosynthesis meant chlorophyll, that green was the color of life. But Desarma's research suggests that purple might actually be the more fundamental color of life. This has practical implications too. Understanding retinal-based photosynthesis could help us develop new types of solar cells or biotechnology applications. Some researchers are already experimenting with incorporating retinal-based systems into artificial photosynthetic devices. Imagine solar panels that work like purple bacteria instead of like green plants. They might be more efficient in certain conditions. The story of Purple Earth also highlights something profound about scientific discovery. For most of human history, we've looked up at blue skies and green plants and assumed that's how things have always been. But the truth is far stranger and more beautiful than we ever imagined. Our planet has been many different colors, supported many different types of life, and gone through changes so dramatic they're hard to comprehend. There's something deeply humbling about realizing that the green world we take for granted is actually relatively new in Earth's history. The purple organisms that dominated our planet for billions of years weren't just primitive precursors to real life. They were incredibly successful, sophisticated organisms that thrived in conditions we can barely imagine. And they're still with us. Every time you see a salt lake turn purple, every time you encounter one of those extremophile organisms living in boiling hot springs or highly acidic pools, you're seeing a direct link to Earth's purple past. These aren't evolutionary failures, they're living reminders of a time when our entire planet was their domain. As I've learned more about this theory, I've started to see parallels with other aspects of life and health. Just like we've assumed green is the natural color of life, we often assume current conditions are the natural state of things. But evolution, whether biological or personal, is about constant change and adaptation. The purple organisms that once dominated Earth had to adapt when oxygen changed everything. They found new niches, new ways to survive, new environments where their ancient methods still worked. There's a lesson there about resilience and adaptation that goes beyond biology. In our own lives, we often face dramatic changes. New technologies, shifting social conditions, personal challenges that force us to adapt or get left behind. The purple Earth reminds us that what seems permanent and unchanging is often just a temporary phase in a much longer story. The research into purple Earth is ongoing, and new discoveries are being made all the time. Just last year, scientists found evidence of retinal-based photosynthesis in environments they never expected, suggesting that this ancient form of life might be more common than we thought. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of what our planet was like billions of years ago. What strikes me most about this whole story is how it changes your perspective on everything. Once you know that Earth was purple, you start questioning other assumptions about what's natural or normal. You realize that our blue skies and green plants are just the latest chapter in a much longer, much stranger story. But here's where things get really weird, and this is the part that keeps me up at night thinking about implications nobody's talking about yet. Some researchers are starting to wonder if these purple organisms might still be influencing our planet in ways we don't understand. Dr. Edward DeLong at MIT published some fascinating work showing that retinal-based microbes are way more common in our oceans than anyone realized. They're not just hanging out in extreme salt lakes, they're everywhere, quietly doing their purple photosynthesis thing right under our noses. Get this, they've found these organisms in places like the Mediterranean, the Pacific, even in ice cores from Antarctica. They're still actively photosynthesizing, still converting light to energy using the same basic process that dominated Earth billions of years ago. We've been so focused on green chlorophyll that we completely missed an entire parallel ecosystem that's been operating alongside it the whole time. And here's the kicker. Some scientists think these modern purple microbes might actually be affecting climate patterns in ways we're just beginning to understand. They absorb different wavelengths of light than green organisms, which means they could be influencing ocean temperatures and atmospheric chemistry in subtle but significant ways. It's like discovering there's been a second invisible biosphere operating on our planet all along. The conspiracy theorist in me wonders what else we've missed by assuming green equals life. When SETI searches for extraterrestrial life, they look for the chemical signatures of oxygen and chlorophyll. But what if alien civilizations are purple? What if we've been scanning the cosmos for green planets while purple worlds have been staring us in the face the whole time? NASA's James Webb Space Telescope is actually starting to look for retinal signatures in exoplanet atmospheres. Early results are interesting. There are some planets showing spectral lines that could indicate purple photosynthesis, but the data is still too preliminary to be sure. Imagine if the first confirmed alien life we discover turns out to be purple, and we realize we've been looking for the wrong thing all along. But here's what really blows my mind. Some researchers think human civilization might have inadvertently been selecting for purple life. Our industrial processes, the way we've changed ocean chemistry, the specific wavelengths of light that pass through our increasingly polluted atmosphere, it might all be creating conditions that favor retinal-based organisms over chlorophyll-based ones. Climate change isn't just melting ice caps and raising sea levels, it's potentially shifting the entire balance between green and purple life on our planet. As oceans become more acidic and temperatures rise, green algae struggles while these ancient purple microbes start thriving again. We might be witnessing the early stages of Earth's return to a more purple-dominated biosphere. There's even speculation that these organisms could be part of the solution to climate change. Some companies are already experimenting with using retinal-based photosynthesis for carbon capture. The process is incredibly efficient and works in conditions where green plants can't survive. Imagine massive purple farms in the desert, pulling carbon out of the atmosphere using the same mechanisms that dominated Earth billions of years ago. The irony is perfect. The future of our planet might depend on embracing its purple past. We're potentially on the verge of a biotechnology revolution, based on organisms that most people have never heard of, using processes that were perfected when Earth was an alien world we wouldn't recognize. The next time you're watching a sunset, try to imagine what it would have looked like 4 billion years ago when the sky itself was painted in shades of purple. But also think about this. That purple world might not be as ancient as we thought. It might be our future too. The purple Earth is gone, but it might not be gone forever. In salt lakes that bloom purple every summer, in the hidden retinal-based ecosystems thriving in our oceans, in the possibility that we're witnessing the early stages of our planet's return to its purple roots, the story isn't over. It's just beginning a new chapter. And maybe that's the most mind-bending realization of all. We're not just learning about ancient history. We might be discovering the key to our future. The organisms that once painted our planet purple could be the ones that save it from the mess we've made. Life finds a way, even if that way involves going back to a color we thought we'd left behind forever. Like the vid, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.